I have seen everything that has ever happened, ever will happen, ever could happen, and yet, what the hell is this?
In this video, I'll be ranking the 9 episodes from the first season of Marvel Studios' What If that just ended today. I'll try to avoid as much spoilers as I can since this is a video for everyone who's either watched the show or haven't, but I doubt anyone will watch this video. Now let's get into it. First off is what if Captain Carter were the first Avenger. This was the first episode in the show and was also my least favorite episode. It felt very rushed, especially with the non-stop music in the background, and nothing much happens in the episode that didn't already happen in Captain America the First Avenger. I give this episode a 5.7 out of 10. Next up is number 8 is what if the world lost its mightiest heroes. This was the third episode in the show. It had good mystery, but there were very little setup to the conclusion, and a lot of things didn't really make sense. I give this episode a 5.8 out of 10. And then on number 7, there's what if Thor were an only child. This is also the 7th episode, and this was also another one of the weaker ones for me. I know there were lots of cameos and Easter eggs, but I just wasn't as gripped as I was with the other entries. I don't know if it's because I'm more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan. I just love dark concepts, and Infinity War is my favorite MCU movie because it takes a lot of the fun elements and subverts them so much. And I give this episode a 6.2 out of 10 because it was pretty entertaining at some areas, and this was probably the only episode that didn't feel rushed. Number 6 is what if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark. The 6th episode, I love the idea of one man playing both sides and starting a world war, but a bunch of things in this episode didn't really make sense, and the big battle was unnecessary. I give this episode a 6.7 out of 10. Next up on number 5 is also episode 5, What If Zombies. This was a good episode overall, but the moments which were supposed to be sad and emotional were cut short by jokes. They didn't give the characters enough time to mourn or be emotional, and then whenever there's an emotional scene, some character would just spread out some joke and ruin the whole thing, which I really hated about this episode because I was looking forward to this. I love the comic, and I'm pretty sure this episode was the main reason everyone's watching the show, and yeah, I was kind of disappointed, but there were a lot of dark elements too that I liked, and plus they also mentioned Uncle Ben for the first time in the MCU, so this episode gets a 6.9 out of 10. Number 4 is what if T'Challa became Star-Lord, aka the 2nd episode. I did not have any complaints about this episode. It was just a fun one-off Marvel adventure with a slight twist. It was also great hearing Chadwick Boseman again, and it was enjoyable, the whole Thanos stuff and everything. It gets a solid 7 out of 10. Number 3 is the finale of the season, What If the Watcher Broke His Oath. This was just Crisis on Infinite Earths, but much better. I don't want to go in too much as it contains major spoilers, but I thought this was a good conclusion to the show, and yeah, this episode gets a 7.5 out of 10. Number 2 is what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands. This was the 3rd episode and the most enjoyable episode in the series. I really loved that episode, and my only complaints are that Benedict Cumberbatch's voice acting was weird in the first part of the episode, but it got better as the episode progressed. I give this episode an 8.6 out of 10. Number 1 is, as you all have guessed, the penultimate episode of the season, What If Ultron Won? Ultron is my favorite villain in the MCU, and the Joss Whedon bitched him in the Age of Ultron movie. And this episode was Marvel kind of fixing their mistake. I really fucking love this episode. Some people say it's over the top for Ultron, but hey, we've never really seen anyone in the MCU use all the Infinity Stones. People who got the stones like Thanos, Hulk, or Iron Man, all they did was snap and then Thanos and Iron Man died. They never really showed the full potential of what you can do when you utilize these stones like uniquely, like all the stuff you can do with this. And this episode was it. I give this episode a 9.3 out of 10. The series overall, it had good episodes, it also had bad episodes. The animation was great, but the smooth movements are kinda too smooth. For example, here Killmonger's armor here looks like it's made out of rubber, when it's actually made. It actually looks metallic in the movie. The soundtracks and music were fine. The character development felt rushed in every episode except for the Party Thor episode. There was some good voice acting, but also bad ones. Overall, I give this series a 7.1 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.